All right, welcome back, everybody. It's been a couple long weeks. I know for me, I feel a little rusty on the podcast here this morning, but my name's Coach Reese. I'm with Loretta here, Coach Loretta, and we're back with Coffee with Coaches. So, Ornery Mule Racing, we like to spread kindness through community and encourage everybody to reach their utmost potential through running and life. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Shannon Hogan. She is from Duluth, Minnesota, you said, correct?
I believe so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. She's a coach with us here at Ornery Mule Racing, and she specializes in work-life balance. So we work life and running life, I suppose. So we're going to have her on in a couple minutes. But first, Loretta, what's new? What's going on? It's been about like 2 or 3 weeks since we talked.
Yeah, it has. Well, I did some running along the Detroit River Trail this weekend. We were out of power because we had storms come through in Michigan. So we were out of power for about 4 days. So we decided to head to Detroit and catch a Tigers game. And we also ran the Detroit River Trail on Saturday and Sunday. It was beautiful. Got to see the Ambassador Bridge and, the Canadian flag flying. So that was neat, and lots of people out.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic. And you're doing pretty well yourself. You said you were at the PT working out some kinks and some niggles and stuff like that.
Yep.
I'm glad to hear
along.
that.
Mileage is going up a bit, so that's exciting, and getting there inch by inch.
Good. I just want to say that, I think it's awesome that, through this whole thing, you've been going to the PT and you've been exploring different avenues to, do a little bit of injury rehab, going to the massage therapist, doing your stretching, your mobility, all that stuff. So I think it's a good lesson for everybody to, if something's nagging at you, that, sometimes it just takes some good old hard work and dedication, just like any other running goal, so.
Right, for sure.
Awesome.
For sure. And that reminds me, I also this week put together a resource library for Ornery Mule Coaching. So there's a resource library with exercises for mobility, strength, and plyometrics. We will continue to build that resource. But right now we have 40 some videos out there. So if you're looking for some good form to help you know how to do some kind of movements or some things to add into your training program, they're on there. They were put together by myself and also our physical therapist, Lisa Elsie.
Awesome. What a great team we have. We've got so many skilled people that, have such cool backgrounds, both in running and professional life. So it's cool to see that the Ornery Mule Racing universe is just expanding.
It is. It's exciting.
So I, about this time last week, my girlfriend and I just got back from Idaho. So we were out there for a week, did a lot of running, did a lot of mountain travel out there, went to a wedding, and then went to Yellowstone and climbed a couple peaks and had a really good time. And then we got back, and I think last week we canceled the podcast because apparently Michigan was underwater or something. I think you guys got swallowed up.
Yeah, we had no power. Storms, okay. Big storms went through.
Yeah, that's nuts. So I'm glad everything aligned today. So we're back on the podcast, back on the usual schedule. I don't think I have anything coming up in the next couple of weeks or so that would keep me from my Thursday mornings here with you. Right. But it's good to be back. So today the topic being running and life and work balance. I think, unless you're at the less than 1% population who, of runners who only have to focus on running for their livelihood, you're probably juggling family and work and the rest of life that can derail some of your training. And a lot of us type A runners, love to get our miles in, love to check the workout boxes. But we've all had those occasions where even though we want to, hit that workout or hit that mileage, things just pull us into a different direction. So, Loretta, I think it would be nice to just kind of go through with the listeners, what is your work, life, and running balance looking like these days? And in a few minutes, we'll wait for Shannon to pop on, and then we'll talk with her and get her expertise.
Okay, sure. So, it's really changed through the years for me and evolved. So, at one point I had a full-time position, a career, my kids were in school, they were in sporting events, and I was balancing, running. And I really got into more ultra running as they were older. So that was a little bit easier for me because they were old enough to take care of themselves, and I could go for a run. But there's always mom guilt hanging on there, even though, so now fast forward to that time of my life now is a little bit easier for me because I do have more focus on running and I'm coaching. So I have that flexibility and it makes it a little bit easier for me to get my miles in and way less stress for me. So I would say that I'm pretty fortunate, to have the flexibility I have. But I'll also say, even though my kids are grown, when they come home, my daughter will be coming home from Boulder in a few weeks, and I will probably spend less time focusing on running because I want to spend all my time with her, and I don't want to leave while she's here and go for a run because then I feel that mom guilt. So, it lasts forever, even though they're grown. But I will balance that with grabbing her and making her come along for a run with me.
Do you ever find yourself like structuring your schedule to have like a down week, like if your kids are home or if your work is picking up, or because I found myself doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I found myself doing that into this wedding week that we had. As I wanted to put in like a bunch of really hard and fast training and a lot of miles leading into it because I knew that like, hey, for like a week and a half, like running would have been, kind of up in the air depending on what we got going on during the day. I don't have kids myself. I have a full-time job and then I coach usually like 8 to 10 hours a week as well. And I'm trying to put in a bunch of training. So I don't have, dad guilt or mom guilt, as you called it. That might be in the future, but, we'll see how it is. But I think it's interesting how us runners think about like our training in terms of, like, oh, I know that work is going to be like a little bit lighter or a little bit easier here. So maybe that's when I focus on the intensity or up in the volume. So that way, like, I can build some space into my day to recover instead of, filling up the one stress bucket that we have with work and running and family and kids and stuff like that.
Yeah. So. And I agree, as a coach, we're always talking with our athletes, figuring out what's coming up on their plans. I like to kind of know, I just had an athlete have a wedding and then a few weeks later went on a honeymoon for a couple of weeks out of the country, right? So I think that there's a lot of opportunity if you know in advance to plan your schedule a little bit around it rather than being stressed. Oh my gosh, I can't get this in. Well, if you can do some creative planning, I think you can work around some of that for the most part in schedules. I do that with athletes all the time. They're going on vacation or maybe their kids are now in a sport this time of the year. And I think that also we look at it when we're thinking about planning races for the year too, right? When is the most optimal time for me to do my training, in the year? Because I know at this time, my kids are going to be super heavy in sports. It's not going to be an ideal time for me, or my workload gets really heavy this time of the year, not ideal for me to do, heavy training. So I think thinking about those things is really helpful to make running not so stressful because we don't want running to be stressful. We don't want to feel like, oh, I have to get these miles in. Instead, we want to feel like I get to go get these miles in and I've got it worked out in my schedule. So I feel good about it. And I think some people can look at it, when we can train in miles, we can train in time. I have athletes doing both or a combination. Sometimes that training in time helps because then I can say, I'm going to devote an hour of my day today. And on Saturday, I'm going to devote 3 hours of my day, and you kind of can plan around that. I think sometimes it's easier to maybe visualize knowing it's a certain time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's personally the way that I think too, in terms of, are you still live?
I'm live and I'm helping Shannon get on the podcast.
Oh, so perfect. Okay.
I'll keep going.
Good. It was a little glitchy earlier. I wanted to make sure we're both synced up and live now. Okay. So yeah, that's typically the way that I think is, not quite as much in terms of miles. Maybe in terms of miles, if I have like, a good significant like open chunk in my day. Like if I have 4 hours, I know that I want to get like a 10 or 15 mile run in. I know like I can definitely do that within 4 hours. But let's say like I'm trying to squeeze something in. I only have 2 hours. And I got to think to myself like, well, it doesn't really matter how far I go. It just matters that like, well, I really only have like an hour and a half to be running because there's going to be 15 minutes on the front end where I'm getting ready to run. And then there's 15 minutes on the back end where I'm like showering or stretching or something like that. So in that case, like you can't think to yourself, like I have to get X miles because you might hit X miles and be over your budgeted time, So I think like being able to be like mentally flexible and not be held to the miles or be held to the time, but be able to like sync and change is fine. I experience this when I'm at work and, you know, we have patients come in late and I can't get out on my run on time. It's like, well, shoot, like I want to get like X miles and it usually takes X time, but now that's cut by like 40%, you know? So it's like, that doesn't mean that you don't go out. It just means that like, hey, let's try to, you know, do like an out and back of like, you know, X minutes that I know, okay, I'm back here on time and I can roll with the rest of my day. Just as a coach too, I think like planning for big weekends or big weeks. Hi.
Your audio's connecting.
For the listeners that can't see, Shannon's just logging into the video here. But yeah, so like whenever I have like back-to-back long runs for athletes, or we have like a big weekend where you're running Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I know they have kids and families and work and stuff like that, I'll let them know well in advance, like 3 to 4 weeks, like, hey, just so you know, like it would be nice to get like a back-to-back in here on this weekend, but let me know if it doesn't work. We can always schedule things around. Sometimes we have that in the plan for like a month or two. And then all of a sudden, like a week beforehand, they're like, I got this pop-up work trip. Or like my kid has this, or like we were in the hospital. So like, I kind of just need extra sleep. And then it's like, well, okay, we have this idea, this plan of like, oh, if all the ducks line up, you know, the universe comes into order, like this is how it's going to work out. But that's when also we always talk about, you can never be like super held to the plan because things are going to change and life is going to pop up.
Right. I agree. So let's just step back a second. We have Coach Shannon Hogan that has joined us now. Shannon, we just started out with a little bit of introduction and talking a little bit about ourselves and how we're balancing our running and life. And so now we would like to, you know, introduce you. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, Shannon?
Sure. I'm Shannon. I have one daughter. Her name's Dot, and I'm a teacher. So that's why today's been kind of crazy. We're just starting up the school year. So it's like open house and back to school time. And I switched positions this year, so it's a little nuts anyway. But yeah, I started running like mainly in 2018 and fell in love with it when I ran a marathon, and then switched to ultras, which now has my heart. And yeah, that's about it.
And you lead or are part of a running group in Minnesota?
Yep. Duluth Running Company, one of our running stores here in Duluth. Yep.
Nice. So Shannon has been coaching with us for a couple of months. I don't know, time flies. Was it like midsummer, early summer you started coaching with us?
Yep. Yeah, beginning of summer.
Nice. So Shannon also understands by having a career and having a young daughter, like how it works with balancing running and life. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you are balancing it yourself personally?
Sure. It's gotten easier as she's gotten a little bit older. So right now she's 8 and she's in a lot of activities. So I just kind of fit runs in whenever I can. She's in gymnastics and a circus class and dance. So anytime she has an activity, I'll go run. I'll just have running stuff in my car, or I leave some at school. So that's one way to work it in, even if it gets broken up a little, like switching between dance classes and other things. Otherwise, early in the morning, I try to get up before everybody else gets up and go for a run. Or having the treadmill is wonderful for that too.
Right.
So, and now that she's a little bit older, she can bike. So like shorter runs, she'll bike along with me, and it's pretty fun. There's a lot of stops involved, but that's okay. So.
Just increases time on feet, I suppose, and problem solving and like mentally staying engaged. And that's something that I always talk about, like in ultras, is that like you can never just kind of like tune out, you know? So I mean, if you're running, if you're keeping track of your 8-year-old, what's her name, by the way?
Shannon. Oh, her name is Dot.
Her name's Dot. Okay, so you're keeping track of Dot. You're making sure she doesn't go into the road where she shouldn't be going, and you know, like it does put on like a mental load, and that that ability to stay connected with your surroundings and what's going on, like, is another part of training. So we got to think about all parts of life in training.
Yep.
I'm
really good at practicing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go for it, please.
I was gonna say she's really good at practicing fueling, because she has like her own little pack, and anytime we go out, even if it's for like a half hour, she thinks she needs to bring a snack and something to drink. So we do good there.
And that's key, right? Taking her out, keeping her happy.
Yep.
It can be a long time for little kids to be out there, but I mean, strategizing ahead of time is really good. I have a friend that also sometimes runs with her daughter who bikes or is on I don't know what it's called, like a hoverboard type thing. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, but we got to keep her happy because she gets bored with us kind of quickly. I mean, we're not boring, but she gets bored with us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah.
I laughed too, Shannon, when you said sometimes it means early mornings. And early mornings are kind of like my bread and butter. I consider myself a morning person. Like I want to be up by like 5 or 6 at the latest. Like by noon, I want to feel like I had like a day already.
Yep.
But I find that like mornings are amazing because you don't have a lot of other people up. Like you don't have your
Mm-hmm.
phone text, blowing up with people asking you what to do or asking for, like asking for favors, which of course, if somebody texts me a favor, like I'm going to absolutely like help somebody out. Right. But it's
Mm-hmm.
nice having that space, knowing that like it is 5 o'clock in the morning right now. Nobody else is up. Like I can sneak off for an hour. I can get back before people get up and then nobody loses any time. And I'm sure like, mothers and fathers out there, that's kind of one of those things where it's like you don't want your kids to always think like, oh, mommy's gone or like daddy's gone or like what are they doing,
Yep.
especially younger.
That's funny. This morning I was texting you probably pretty early because I'm an hour ahead of you, so it wasn't that early for me. And I was thinking Reese is out on his run right now, and I keep texting him. Were you running then?
Yeah, well, okay. So when you first texted me, I actually woke up at about like 5:45 this morning. I started working on my dining room table that I've been building for way too long now, and I've been talking about for too long. So I was actually in the middle of staining it when my text messages went up.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I ended up doing was I stained my table and then I got up for my run and got out by like 7:30 and waited for it to get a little bit warmer because I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be warm, like heat training, So, but that's just the way my nerdy brain works.
So for me, morning runs are out. I don't really like morning runs. I would much rather run at night. I love night runs, like late evening runs. And I have a flexible schedule, so I can also run during the day. But I mean, ask any of my friends and they'll be like, oh, if it's an early morning run, Loretta probably won't be here. I've never regretted one that I've gotten to. It's just getting there. So Shannon, with athletes that you coach that have these kind of busy schedules, how are you making it work for them? I mean, what are some things that you think are key to helping people be able to balance the two?
First, just having them send me a schedule, like when they think is going to work for them. And if it's a few, if it's 4 days a week versus 5 or 6 days, we can work that in. Like the 2-a-day thing, like doing some cross training as well. And then just taking like into account how much stress their life is if they're switching jobs, or I had an athlete who was moving her daughter to college and that type of thing, then just being really flexible in that moment. So
right. I think that personally, my experience has been the athlete is less flexible with themselves than I am as a coach with them, right? I think sometimes that's one of the keys about coaching is that we can give them that peace of mind that it's okay to be a little bit flexible. And I think flexibility helps in life in general, right? But it helps also these things that we're balancing, like reset, it helps in our races because flexibility and adaptability are key to making it through some bigger ultra races. So when we're navigating them in life, we can apply them to late in an ultra when we're struggling, I think too.
right.
Well, and like we always talk about too, like you don't have to be running to practice like your ultra performance, right? Like in ultras, mentally we need to be resilient, we need to be adaptable, we need to be resourceful, we need to be engaged, but at times we also need to be like withdrawn. So I think that like like in day-to-day life, like you don't have to be on the run to practice those mental skills. Like you're juggling your schedule. Maybe you had a run on the calendar. It doesn't get to happen. I'm terrible at this. I need to practice this. But like if I have an idea that like I want this today and I build it into my schedule and then it doesn't happen, like I'm like, oh man, I just get like kind of angry, But like trying to step back, trying to breathe and say like, okay, it's not a big deal. It's okay. We can work around this. That mental flexibility to be able to switch back and forth between emotions and calm yourself down when you get too sympathetic or amp yourself up when you get too parasympathetic during a run, like that's huge because you're going to be in a race and you're going to be getting stressed or you're going to be getting anxious and you can step back and say, okay, Like I can calm myself. I can get through this. It's not the end of the world. We'll get through.
Right.
Perfect.
And I also feel like, you know, with my athletes, I like to have some, I guess, flexibility in their training. So days I often give ranges of miles or time
Oh,
that they're
yep.
trying to do. And sometimes that can help ease a schedule if it's a, you know, if it's a scheduling issue that day, if they have a little bit of flexibility. And it also can help, you know, with just listening to your body, so kind of going within that range. So, you know, I have the, if maybe today I'm just not feeling it, or I have a really big busy schedule, or I'm like overly stressed, maybe I'm going to go on the lower end of that range. Or maybe I feel really good today and I have some extra time, I'm going to probably go to that higher end of that, you know. So it kind of gives people flexibility, and I feel like a little bit of breathing room. What's your thoughts on that?
I do the same thing. I have a range, so a few miles or the time
Yeah.
range too. Yeah. And then like just talking to one of my athletes who just finished her goal race, she's like, I kind of want to just go down to 3 or 4 days a week. I'm like, that's totally fine. You know, it's a good to have some downtime, and especially like during the winter months, maybe do some cross training, skiing, and things like that too.
Right, for sure.
Well-rounded.
Yeah. Yep.
I do like what you said too, Loretta, about sometimes like we give more grace to our athletes' schedules or to our athletes' running than they do. And I think like, you know, like as a coach, and like Shannon, you definitely have experience with this. Like, you know, runners come to us, and sometimes it's like our job to kind of talk them like out of the anxiety of like, oh, I missed this workout, or like, oh, I missed that. Like how do you handle that, like type A personality, go get it, check all the boxes? Because I always find it difficult when like, you know, somebody's like, if it's on the plan, I'm gonna do it, and it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
but the plan, like I always tell people, the plan is always tentative, you know. How do you navigate that anxiety with your athletes?
Well, I have one who, she came to me being worried because she was like the stuck to the plan person and felt like she was burnt out on running. So we talked about it, and we just included more things. She enjoys swimming, so we included more swimming. And then just constantly reminding her before like her race and things that, you know, you put in the work, you don't have to get every single mile in. It's the consistency over time. And if you miss a few miles or you miss a few workouts, that's going to be okay. It's better to be actually a little bit undertrained probably than overtrained anyway going into a race. And I think just keeping that line of communication open, so whenever she was feeling some anxiety about something, we just talk it through and be like, no, look at what you did last week and the week before, and you're building over time. It's not just this one big workout or something that's going to make or break you. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that that's really key. I think sometimes we obsess over a one particular workout that we missed, that it's not really going to make or break that race, right? But in our heads, we get there. So I think as a coach, I think that that's really great to be able to be that perspective that, you know, like it's okay. You know, we can kind of build their confidence, you know, through that. Of course, you can't miss running many days and still say it's okay, but to most of the extent we can. And also, you know, a lot of my athletes have usually one or two or maybe 3 rest days a week. And so it's really, we are able to kind of move things around if we need to. So I have athletes that are busy with busy kids' schedule lives and their own work life that will say, you know, can we swap my rest day today? I'm just, you know, I have a game, they have a game today, not going to make it in, you know, and so we're able to do some of that adapting as well, and making sure that we're moving workouts appropriately so that they're not just, you know, putting together maybe key workouts that shouldn't go together or whatever. So
right.
I gladly like, okay, yes, give it to me and I'll rearrange your plan for the week, you know. How do you feel about that?
I've talked to them beforehand, like on the schedule. Sometimes I'll be like, look, or when I send an email out, these are the key workouts you need, you know, like if you have to skip some, you don't do your recovery run. If you're not feeling it, just take a break, or this, you know, regular long slow run you can get rid of. But if, you know, like our one speed workout of the week or a tempo run or something, and then the long run, those are the key ones. But the other ones can be switched around, worked around. If you need to get rid of one, that's fine too. So
Yeah, and that's what I usually tell my athletes too, is that like, hey, there's like 1 to 2 days a week that like I want you to show up for and try to hit like these paces. And like ideally it would be cool if we can hit the workout. But like too, when athletes are like, oh, this is like the key workout for the week, like I can't miss this. Like talking through that, like, well, you know, like the rest of your life matters. So you're good. You might have to miss your run, but don't worry about it, because it's not about the single run that is going to make or break your performance. It's not about one like hero workout that you do that's going to make you better for your race. It's like the aggregation or the collection of weeks worth of okay runs, that like increase your fitness. So I think it's easy to get lost in the weeds of like, oh, this one matters like really, really bad. Like I have to make it, but like my kid has like, practice or whatever. And it's like, well, no, it's okay. You can miss it because of the weeks or months of everything that you've been doing anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been talking a lot too about like, like athlete and child relationships, but like in a family, there is like an athlete and then a significant other, a partner, a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, like how, like, and this goes out to everybody because we all have experience with this. Like, how do you navigate that relationship? Because, like everybody has different routines with when they like to wake up. Everybody has different routines with when they can actually get their workout in. And, like as, partners, like we need to collaborate with each other's schedules. How do you all talk to your athletes about collaborating with their partners?
It's kind of a give and take. Like just personally, my partner likes to sleep in, so it works for me to go get a morning run in. And then that's Dot's. I kind of limit TV time or technology time so she can watch cartoons or a Disney movie and she actually looks forward to me going on runs sometimes just so she can do that. But yeah, just talking about what do you both like to do? How are you going to get around that? Like he likes rock climbing, so if we are going on a vacation, or I like to run, so a lot of our vacations are runcations, and we'll go do an event, and then it's usually somewhere with rocks he can climb on his time, and then Dot will pick activities too. Some of the athletes I have, they both are active, so they do like triathlon things together, or they fast pack together. But it's also letting them do their hobbies too. So sometimes might have to cut out something that you want to do and let them have their free time, whether it's golfing or whatever, and make it an equal priorities in the relationship. So there's no resentment building.
Right, for sure. And my relationship's pretty similar. My husband's pretty good about, we just did a little trip to Detroit for the weekend to go watch the Tigers play. And we found, a trail along the Detroit River, and he biked, I ran, so he wasn't really biking very fast, but he was there. We were still able to have some fun while I got in my miles. So, making those kind of things happen. I also like to ask athletes like realistically, how many hours in a week do you have to commit to running that is okay with, your life, that balances your life? Because I feel like we need to have a good idea of about how much time people have so that they can stay consistent. Because if we're asking for more time than they have, it's not going to work, right? So making sure to work together and figure out like how much time is realistic on a weekend or on a weekday, and just so you can kind of help balance that. So it also helps keep things happy in life, and they're not overdoing and taking too much time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And my anecdotes are going to be more like I'm trying to find an app that doesn't like the alarm sound isn't so like blaring. So that way when I get up at like 4:30 in the morning, it doesn't like totally disrupt my partner. Like the sound going off on the burr, burr, burr. Otherwise, like we do a lot of runs together. So we both usually run different paces. So I'll try to get my workouts in. And then the time that we do spend running is like the fun time where it's like, okay, I'm not worrying about pace. I'm not worrying about working out. I'm just worrying about like, like enjoying an experience. Otherwise, yeah, like for me, it's all about like, hey, like I'm going to have a couple weeks where like, I'm going to be like trying to make sure that I like, hit my workouts and I hit my mileage and stuff like that. So I'm going to be a little bit more like, more dedicated to prioritizing that. And just making sure like, my partner's okay with it and it doesn't conflict too much. And I think for me too, is like, I load up my day a lot. So between like working and then running and then coaching and then like bouncing back and forth, like I try not to slack on like doing the grocery shopping or like making the food for the next day or whatnot. So I think just like for like my relationship, it's more like, okay, like make sure I am taking care of something for the house or something for my partner, like most days, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's always a balance, and it's always a struggle, and it always requires constant communication, I feel like, between everybody. Which is great, because then those times that you do go out and you are running, you're not feeling like you're, you know, like skipping time out on your partner, or, you know, like going out to run when you should be doing this chore, or when you should be caring for your child or spending time with them. So it's like kind of like building your life so that way by the time you do get out on the run, you're kind of like guilt-free, you're soaking up the experience, you're like, you know, enjoying the nature. You're not thinking like, oh my God, I only got 45 minutes and like I gotta go take my kid to like swim practice, and then like this and then that, and you know, and taking the stress out of being out there, you know. Because I feel like when I get stressed, I push my paces way too hard, I don't recover well enough, and then I feel like the rest of life just kind of suffers. And like running should like add to our lives and not subtract or like make us more stressed.
Yeah. And I think one other thing is that works really well is trying to add things to your daily routine. So it's not adding extra, it's just kind of working in your routine. I've had parents that have ran to soccer games or ran during like a practice while their, you know, child's at practice. I think that works pretty well. And so I mean, our physical therapists suggest doing heel raises while you're brushing your teeth, you know, to think about things that you can do during your day. Like I have athletes that are doing planks or, you know, mountain legs in the office at lunchtime, you know, so there's ways to build in those little things throughout your day to work it into your daily routine that I think makes it work really well. You know, maybe it's that early morning run is, you know, part of your daily routine, and it just kind of blends. So it doesn't seem like an extra, it just seems like part of your day. I think that's also really helpful and makes it easier to be consistent.
Absolutely.
I had a friend who always run commuted. So when her kids were little, she just took the stroller after she dropped the kids off at daycare, and then would put all her books in the stroller because she was a teacher as well, and then to run to school, run back to daycare to pick them up and leave their car parked at daycare.
Oh, that's
So
smart.
yeah, and it wasn't, you know, it was like 4 miles total, but that's still building up and you're getting some mileage in. So
Right. Or if you want to be extreme, go like Dean Karnazes, get rid of all of your vehicles, wear a backpack and run to all of your meetings and things that you do. Because
yeah,
that's what it is.
We need to make adults adventurous again. Like get out of the
Right.
status quo of like driving everywhere. And I mean, like I'm fortunate, I only live about a mile away from where I work, you know, but like I'll walk, I'll bike, you know. So it's funny because all of that, like, you know, I think David Roach calls it like zone zero training, where it's like, yeah, like it's not getting your heart rate up, but you're like calling upon your body to, you know, like make energy and your muscles to move, and it's contributing to like de-stressing and getting you out in the sunlight and like enjoying yourself instead of like slamming on your brakes, slamming on the gas to go to work, you know. So I feel like it takes like a little bit of ingenuity, but like at the end of the day can like make life less status quo or mundane and kind of spice it up a little bit, like make each day interesting.
Right. So we have to wrap up the show here pretty soon, but I have one question for both of you before we end. So an athlete comes to you and says, I have a really busy schedule. I'm a mom, I'm a dad, I work full time, but I really want to run a 100-mile race. Can I do it? What's your answers?
definitely. It might take some like finagling with the schedule and tweaking things, but you can make it work. Even I was just thinking back to like the little mini running camps where you go and running, you know, like your 20 miles one day, 20 miles the next day, and 10. Like if your grandparents or have a friend that'll watch, or they have a sleepover for a week or something, or a weekend, you can fit things in like that. And then yeah, just the getting up early, running at lunchtime if you're working in the early mornings. You can make it work.
Yep.
So
I would agree. What about you, Reese? What do you say?
Absolutely not. When things get tough or require ingenuity, just quit. Don't even
Just
start.
stop.
Turn around,
stick to
go
5Ks.
home. No, okay, so that was sarcasm for everybody that's out there. I think that like if there's something that you want to do, like there's no reason why you can't start like placing the stepping stones to get to your outcome. Say if somebody's like absolutely brand new to running and they're like, I love this ultra thing, but I've never ran more than a mile, you know, or a 5K or a 10K or whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, then let's be realistic about your goals. Let's be realistic about your time. Let's start placing these stepping stones and building out a timeline and putting these intermediate goals so that way you build confidence up to your big goal. I don't think there's any reason why anybody should limit themselves to anything that they want to do. You know, can somebody who's never run longer than X distance, running their first 100-miler, say like, I want to go win X race this year? Maybe not. So we got to take into consideration, like, what are your goals? What is appropriate? But can everybody, do I firmly believe that everybody has the capability to put in hard work and start building towards a goal? Absolutely. There's no reason why it should be taken off of the schedule or off of your goal list if it's something that you really want to achieve. So like we've been talking about this whole podcast, you know, it might require a little bit of ingenuity, might require a little bit of time management skills, but that's what coaches are here for. Like we either have personal experience with, you know, running and training in life and work and building it around, or we've coached some other athletes who, you know, constantly give us feedback about like, hey, this is what's working with my life. This is what's not working with our lives. So I know personally, just the more people that I coach and the more demographics of people that I coach, the more experience I get, even though I haven't lived it, you know. Even just talking with you and you, Coach Loretta and Shannon, like I don't have kids, but I have a fairly decent idea of how other parents are working it into their training schedule. So that's where you can utilize a coach, and you can talk with us about your training, your time management, and all those things that can start you on the right path, onto those stepping stones, so that way you can achieve your greater goals.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Dream big. Don't hold yourself back just because you have a busy schedule. You can make it happen if you want to make it happen, right? So I'm always there too, supporting people to those dream big goals. And I love to be able to do it. I love watching people do it. I've had people with big families and jobs running 200-mile races, running 100-mile races. You know, there's no limit if that's something that you want, and you can make it happen. So, well, it was great chatting with you guys today. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
I
you
was
so
gonna
much
say,
for
and it's
coming
such
on.
a good example for your kids
Absolutely.
to see you work hard and have that grit and then accomplish something. So
absolutely. I love that. I love that because that's, you know, something that I've learned, that my kids really respect me, you know, for being able to do some of those big things. So, and I hope that I inspire them to continue to dream big as well. So yeah, it was a great conversation today. And Coach Shannon is taking new athletes. So if you're interested in working with Coach Shannon, go to trailrun.coach.com or trailrun.coach and look us up, and we can get you set up with a call with Shannon, and maybe she would be a great match for you. Or of course, Reese is available as well. Didn't want to leave you out, Reese.
That's okay. Well, thanks. Thank you, Coach Shannon, for jumping on. It was great to hear about your background, and it's great to hear that you're doing what you can for your athletes and for your life and for your daughter and for your family and whatnot. So,
thank you both.
Thanks for educating us athletes and bringing ultra running to a better level.
Okay. And fun fact, my grandma's name was Dot.
Oh.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And don't forget to go check out our YouTube channel, Ornery Mule Racing. We have a whole new collection of exercise videos that will be great for you to be able to work into your schedule. So, all right. Till next time.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.